But I think neighbor falls on the very, very edge of impact, because you look at us compared to other software companies, most of the money that we collect, most of every dollar that comes in through our platform doesn't go to us. It goes to people.
You're listening to the Real Returns podcast, where we learn how real investments can make a real impact. Join your hosts, Andrew and Dan, as they share stories and interview business leaders on how real estate and other forms of investment can create meaningful change for individuals and communities around the world.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Real Returns podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Reichert. I'm joined with my co-host, Dan the Man Croce. Dan, how are you doing over there?
I am well. I have to admit, it's the post-lunch lull here, so I'm feeling a little sleepy. But Andrew, it's your lucky day, because I assume maybe you're a little lagging too after lunch. So I got a joke for you to perk you up today.
I was hoping you might.
I do. It's a surprise, but I brought a joke for you. Okay, so, and this might come from life experience. What do you call the only dude in a room full of middle-aged moms at spin class at 5:30 a.m. on a Wednesday morning?
Dan Croce?
No. An idiot. And what do you call that idiot?
Dan Croce?
Yeah, there it is.
I was going to say, that sounds like something you do.
So, point being, I did just eat lunch and I had an early morning, but I am really excited for the next half hour or so, where we get to meet Joseph Woodbury of neighbor.com. Joseph has a really interesting career path and story with a lot of great intersection with the impact investing themes that we like to talk about here on the show. So Joseph, thank you for joining us today. We're looking forward to getting to know you. Would you mind introducing yourself to our audience and maybe just give us a few words about neighbor.com and your path to launching it?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, we lead neighbor.com. I'm the founder and CEO, and we're a nationwide self-storage marketplace. So we're the only storage operator at this point that's operating in all 50 states, and we let people rent out excess space that they have. We've got a residential business unit where we work with homeowners, just like Airbnb, where people are renting out garages or driveways for either vehicle storage or self-storage. And then we also have a commercial business unit as well, where we're working with large portfolio owners, small regional operators, owners of office or retail or multifamily, to rent out excess space that they have. So this could be, the city made you build X number of parking spots. You don't need those for all of your tenants. So we onboard them onto the platform and rent them out to the community for vehicle storage. Or maybe you built storage lockers inside your multifamily complex for your tenants, but they don't use them. So we rent them out to the community for self-storage. So we're just a space monetization platform, and we're doing it all over the country.
That's fascinating. And I've got to think that there's a ton of unlocked potential in people's spaces that they probably don't even know about. So it sounds like there's this real win-win. What does it look like for a person that's a user or kind of an owner of that space to really fully monetize that space through your platform? Like, what does that look like for them?
Yeah, it's amazing to see the gamut. Again, like this goes all the way from, a residential homeowner that is earning, stores their neighbor's boat on the side of their home through our platform and is earning an extra $3,000 or $4,000 a year to help cover utilities and pay part of the mortgage, all the way up to, we work with publicly traded billion-dollar REITs that have properties. They may have 300, 400, 500 properties around the country, and they're earning, 7 figures a year on the platform in ancillary income. And we get everything in between. So we'll work with regional investors, or maybe even small real estate investors that are just buying rental properties, and they're cash on cash. Their net return on a property, they don't really have much room to move that up. But the neighbor can come in and double that cash on cash return to their property because it's all incremental. It's just all on the top.
Yeah. And what a way to extract that value and really create that win-win situation. So our podcast, we love to talk about the impact of our investments, the impact of our capital, the impact that we can have as people and as businesses. And you're clearly having a huge impact through the work that you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about the impact and the outcomes from a business and individual standpoint?
Yeah, definitely. It's part of what makes working in a company like Neighbor super fun is the impact side of it, especially in the technology space. We're a technology company. We're venture-backed software company. And if you look at a lot of other venture-backed companies, of course, they're creating very meaningful products that help businesses, SaaS software. And I think really all businesses have an impact component to them, except for businesses that rely on some sort of like human addiction, like, some sort of drug company or even Coca-Cola. I wonder if they fall in that category. But pretty much everyone is adding value. One of my favorite books is The Prosperity Paradox by Clayton Christensen, where he talks about the best way to, lift countries out of poverty is not actually through, charitable contributions, but through establishing robust businesses that provide jobs and help people really create a sustainable path towards a better living standard. But I think Neighbor falls on the very, very edge of impact, because you look at us compared to other software companies, most of the money that we collect, most of every dollar that comes in through our platform doesn't go to us. It goes to people. I remember the day that we paid out our first millionth dollar. This was a long time ago. And that was just such a cool day where it's like, we've distributed $1 million. Now we have customers. Now we have individual customers that can earn $1 million a year. And so I just think it's so high impact, and it's direct impact. It's not like immeasurable, intangible. It's dollars in people's pockets.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what matters, as opposed to the intangible stuff that's hard to really calculate. And I'm sure you've also got some stories just of how you've impacted lives along the way. I feel like a story always brings to life the impact that you're having. Any particular story you might be willing to share?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. Well, first, just staying on the monetary piece. There's one host we've got that really started out small with us. It's a host in Hawaii and just started listing some extra space for vehicle storage, started earning some money, has now, since kind of expanded the space that they have available to offer, and is now, this is just an individual person. It's not a real estate portfolio. She's earning $120,000 a year now just through our platform. And that's life-changing income.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just monetary. I think one of the big benefits to our platform is the community aspect to it as well. People need storage close to them. So when people are coming onto our platform, booking storage, whether that's to an individual's home or to a small business in the area, they're meeting new people and they're becoming aware of their community. We'll have individuals that have lived 2 doors down from each other for 5 years, and they've never really said more than hi to each other. They'll wave to each other if they see each other. And now that they've booked each other, they had to move in, they got to know each other, they realized they have a lot in common, and now they go to lunch every Thursday together. This is kind of crazy, but we've even had individuals start dating because they met on our platform. It's just, we need more of these interactions as a society because we have so many fewer of them because things have gone so digital. We need more interactions that kind of cause us to bump into each other in the physical world. Another story here is we had a gym in LA during the COVID pandemic. Things are shut down. He turns to our platform to help pay the lease, right? He's got to keep the lights on. And he earns about $50,000 a year on our platform. And almost as important as the money is the fact that the people coming to store at his gym, they're now aware of his gym. So it's helping his business as well.
Yeah. I love that. Thinking of the double bottom line. It's, it's kind of helping in all aspects there.
Yeah.
Joseph, I have to assume that you don't have people who are coming onto the platform like saying, I need to store my 6 Ferraris somewhere. And then next thing you know, people are like asking them out on a date. And I hope that's like where you're going.
We do. Hey. Well, honestly, one of our big categories is luxury and classic cars, especially in more high-end residential neighborhoods. We'll have an individual that owns a very large home, with a 6-car garage, and they don't use it. They're not a car person, and they just bought the home because they like the rest of it. And they'll rent out 4 of the garage stalls. And you've got someone who lives in the neighborhood, also owns a high-end home, but they don't have room for their classic cars. So they'll store them a couple doors down. It's much more convenient than storing them at some storage facility in some industrial area of town, where in order to drive the car, it's an event. They've got to go travel down there. They can just walk over to their neighbor's house, hop in their car and drive off. So that does happen. We've had, 1950s Mustangs, vintage kind of Porsches and cars like that stored on the platform. Really cool stuff.
That is cool. I was mostly kidding with my question, but it's interesting to hear kind of how the use cases play out. The thing I'm curious about, though, is as a marketplace, I mean, you are connecting supply and demand. And I'm curious, what's the heavier side of the platform right now? Does it ebb and flow and kind of go back and forth, or are you, yeah?
It's definitely supply. We're the only storage operator that operates in all 50 states, and we really operate in almost every city in all 50 states at this point. And we have millions and millions of renters that come to our site every year that we're unable to service because we just don't have enough supply in their area. Furthermore, this platform, it's not like Airbnb where someone can book it one day and then someone else can come along and book it the next day. Like, the supply is always available on the platform. On our platform, once your space is booked, that comes down off the platform because storage is very long-term, right? Someone may be storing 6, 12, 18, 24 months. We have storage renters that started with us in 2018 that are still with us today and had no signs of stopping. And so supply is definitely the constraint on the platform, which is why people earn so much money when they join, is because we have so much demand to give them, especially in high density areas.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are you doing to go out and chase supply? Is there a marketing program in place?
There are. Of course, we have like traditional marketing and sales programs, but as we get bigger, word of mouth becomes a bigger and bigger category for us. So we've got the demand side and the supply side. The supply side, they have a lot to talk about. This is kind of a fun thing to talk about at a party is, oh, hey, I earn X amount of dollars. And it's very passive. Amongst marketplaces, we're probably the most passive income. You look at like a DoorDash or an Uber. In many ways, that's a job. I mean, you have to drive around to earn dollar for dollar. It's labor in, dollars out. And even a platform like Airbnb, which is a little more passive, one, you have to be wealthy enough to afford a second home to participate. But 2, they're coming every day. I mean, someone stays for 2 nights, then you got to clean up after them and talk to the next customer. It's constant customer acquisition. And so a lot of people will hire management companies to manage their Airbnb. Whereas Neighbor, we have large portfolio owners that we work with that, again, are doing tons of rentals all the time through their 300 properties nationwide. And they hardly have to touch it because the person comes in, they move in, and then they don't even see them for 6 months. They're just collecting earnings into their bank account. It's as passive as money gets.
Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say to maybe a person who owns real estate or has a lot of extra, driveway or parking spaces that may be reluctant to rent them out because of either concern around liability, or I assume you guys handle like the leasing side of things and contracting?
Yep.
Like, how do you help people get really comfortable with, embarking on this if they haven't before?
I think 2 questions are always, this is effectively a business, right? And so, do I open myself up to any liabilities of business? And our job as a platform is to create trust. We have $1 million liability guarantee, just like Airbnb does, that whether you're a residential user or a commercial property owner, we cover you. In addition, there can be a question about access and frequency. And particularly at the beginning, once people get into it, they really don't have that question because they realize the access and the frequency is quite manageable. But as people are signing up, we can reassure them on you can set your access hours, you can set your access frequency, you can even set the types of items that people are able to book with your space. So you could rent out a parking lot and you could say, I only want vehicles. I don't want to allow boat trailers or RVs. Or you could say, I want to open up everything because I want to earn as much money as possible. So we have a lot of customizability, and the renters see that before they book your space. They can't book your space until they kind of acknowledge, oh, this is how often I'll be able to access my items. This is when I'll be able to access my items. Business hours only, or after hours only, or by appointment only. So we just create a ton of, we enable the host to run their business, and we have all the tools already built for the host to do that. And so there's really not much effort on the part of the host.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'd love to dig into your story a little bit, if you wouldn't mind. Like, you obviously have founded this, it's having a ton of impact. How did you, see this need and now you've got venture back capital, and that's having an impact in your business, which is having an impact in all of these lives. Like, I'd love to just hear a little bit more about how you positioned yourself to start this company, and, for folks who may be wanting to start something similar, like if you have any suggestions along those lines.
Sure. So my co-founder really deserves the credit for coming up with the idea for the company. He needed storage. He had, back before we started the company, he had just gotten married. And a week after he got married, he actually flew down, he and his wife both flew down to South America to work for an impact organization down there, a humanitarian org that helps farmers do fair trade stuff in South America. And of course, getting married and a week later flying down to South America, they needed a place to put their newly combined stuff while they were going to be gone. And they looked into getting a storage unit and had a similar experience that I think most people have, where they were all full. All the ones close by were full. And that's a nationwide phenomenon, by the way. I think storage is on average 95% occupied nationwide. Wow. It's very, very high occupancy rates. And then the ones that did have vacancy, they were far away, they were very expensive, and they were not the most, they're zoned in these industrial parks, not the most safe areas. Mm-hmm. And so he got creative. He called one of his friends and said, hey, could I put my stuff in your garage? Could my wife and I put our stuff in your garage while we're gone? And he said, of course. Fast forward 4 months later, he gets back, goes to pick up his items, and he's just thinking, one, this was such a better experience. I felt a lot more peace of mind knowing my items were in a nice, clean garage in a neighborhood I trusted than in one of those dirty storage units. And plus, I saved a ton of money renting with, paying my friend instead of paying a storage facility. Why doesn't everyone do this? There's got to be empty space in every neighborhood in the country. Why hasn't someone created a directory or a marketplace for this? He approached me about the idea. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Plus, as I looked into it, just realizing that storage, you look at the market that Uber disrupted, taxis and limos, storage does about 10x the revenue on an annual basis. You look at the players in this space, Public Storage, $50 billion publicly traded company, only has like 7% storage market share. That's how big this market is. And it just represented such a cool opportunity to go tackle. And then we've even expanded that since in opening it up to commercial space as well. That just opens up kind of endless possibilities.
Joseph, I'm curious on the commercial side, are the transactions B2B or are they B2C? Are businesses renting commercial space to individuals?
By and large, they're B2C. So again, without naming names, we work with 2 of the top 5 multifamily owners in the country. And those are B2C. Again, they're renting parking stalls that are just extra. The city made them build so many parking stalls around their multifamily unit, and they take all the extra and they rent it out for vehicle storage. And then they also built these storage lockers inside their multifamily, and they rent those out to the community as well. We take them from 30% occupancy to 90% occupancy. This is so big for them. One of them just did a public, they're public companies. So they just did an earnings call, and they mentioned their ancillary revenue targets for the year, and a 7-figure portion of that ancillary revenue target was neighbor. So we're having a real impact to the bottom line here. And if you think about it from a returns perspective, if you're a retail investor, we also work with, of the top 10 retail earners in the country, we probably work with 4 of them, 5 of them. And, your returns are somewhat standardized at this point. It's a very competitive market. You're not going to get returns that are much above kind of standard 12, 13, 14, 15% IRRs, or however you want to measure it. But the neighbor can be your secret sauce, where you can't raise rent. You can only raise rents on an annual basis, but you can come in and earn all of this ancillary income and do full property monetization, and think about your property not as I only do this, but as I own this property, and the point of this property is to generate cash, as much cash as possible. And all of a sudden you look like a genius. You don't have to tell them it's neighbor driving that. You can just go to your LPs and say, oh, look, we have non-standard returns. We're just really good at running retail properties or multifamily properties, but really you're just monetizing the full property.
It's very cool. And Andrew and I might have to pick your brain a little bit more after this call.
For sure.
But hey, look, I'm a huge fan of what you're doing for multiple reasons. I think the impact is really clear. Just on a personal level, I love marketplace businesses because they meet such a clear need. Going way back, the first fund that I managed was a alternative credit fund, and we played a lot on the peer-to-peer lending platforms. And I loved those platforms because they met such a clear need. And, you had this universe of lenders and a universe of borrowers that just couldn't find each other. And so what a tremendous value add you can be by, being the marketplace to connect people that otherwise can't find each other. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
I am going to transition us here. I feel like I've gotten to know the story and the business and the impact of neighbor a little bit. But now, hope to get to know you a little bit personally with our lightning round. So buckle your seatbelt. First up, what would you say is your biggest win? Personal, professional, however you want to take it.
Well, I think I mentioned the professional one, which was, a long time ago, year or two after we'd started the business, hitting that first, $1 million paid out to hosts. Personally, getting to agree to marry me, and then we've got 6 kids, with another on the way. So that's wow. My big win.
Wow, Joseph. I'm not often topped in that category.
Yeah, Dan's got 5, but yeah, you one-upped him. About
wow,
to 2
he's about to 2. Yeah. That's amazing. Good for you.
Non-standard awesome return,
right? Love it.
Yeah, double, triple bottom line. Cool. So what's your favorite movie?
Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, wow. Great choice.
Good one.
I haven't seen that in so long, but I need to dust it off.
It's a commitment. It's a 3-hour commitment. So.
I remember that. Favorite food?
Oatmeal.
Wow. Another one that I've never heard.
That's amazing. You're nailing
like any like milk or sugar, or just fruit, some fruit, or
just copious amounts of honey. Okay. It's my go-to every morning. It's kept me alive for 30 years now.
Nice.
Routine's a good thing. What is a current growth edge for you? And by that, I mean, how are you trying to develop or grow, either in your work or outside of work?
I think building this kind of startup, which marketplaces are just difficult, right? A lot of companies, you only have to acquire 1 customer, and in a marketplace, you have to figure out how to acquire 2 customers. And if you get that balance wrong, then the other customer is unhappy and you can't acquire the other customer. And then on layering that on top, I think startups, I started this out of school. So I've been in over my head since day one, not knowing what more experienced people do. So I just say for other people, throwing yourself into situations that you feel incapable is probably the fastest way to grow. You can learn all sorts of stuff from a textbook, but jumping in the deep end is probably the fastest way to grow.
Tell us about it. We're still trying to build planes while flying them. So what's some A+ content you're taking in these days, either books that have been impactful for you or podcasts you're listening to? Just what would you recommend?
Yeah, a couple books that I love are Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. And then I like reading old biographies. There's a biography of Lincoln called With Malice Toward None. I think it's a masterclass in leadership. And then content, I just think it's hard to top Wall Street Journal. All sorts of newsletters that come out, and Wall Street Journal just keeps delivering the best stuff.
Well, then I have to ask a follow-up. Do you get a hard copy delivered? Are you in that camp?
So I did. I did for a while. I don't know if you had this experience. The hard copy never showed up. It would show up like, once a week or once every 2 weeks, and then I'd get like 5 copies at once. So I bailed out on the hard copy a while ago.
Gotcha.
That was their way of getting you out of it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Joseph. How can our listeners find you if they want to learn more about Neighbor or about you as a leader? How can they find you?
We've tried to make it as easy as possible. So we're just neighbor.com. If you search any sort of storage term on the App Store, we should come up number 1, boat storage, RV storage, self-storage, whatever. And then, if you are a large owner of property or a large investor, you own a lot of real estate, whether that's office or retail or multifamily, feel free to just reach out to me directly and I can link you in with our team. My email is just joseph@neighbor.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. I really do love the impact that you're having by being that marketplace, by connecting. You guys saw this need on both fronts, and you're just connecting people to capitalize on this excess space that people have and allow them to really monetize that more fully. So thanks again. I learned a ton about your business and about what you're doing, and excited to continue to follow your story.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Real Returns Podcast. We hope that you learned something new about how you can invest to make a lasting impact on those around you. Please be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you listen to your podcasts, leave us a review, and share about us on social media. We hope you will join us for our next episode, where we will be continuing the conversation around impactful real estate investing.